Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Model Citizen Podcast. Did you guys hear the new intro?
What do you guys think? Like, what do you guys think? I'm excited. I like it. I love it. I love this whole thing.
So this isn't permanent, but we had this grand idea to start this series called The Summer of Self-Love. And we just think that this is going to be so impactful and beneficial for each of you. You guys are now hearing it first and foremost on the Model Citizen podcast. But if you are listening to this on Thursday with our very first episode, you know that tomorrow we are debuting it on CBS Morning.
Woo! We're taking it national, guys. We're taking it across the country. Your girl's flying. She's going to New York, and we're going to be on CBS Morning. Like, what a huge... Like, this is huge, you guys. Like, we are literally... Like, it's huge. Like, this is so exciting.
Squealing.
Couldn't have been possible without y'all. Like, you guys have supported us through so much and all of this and like all of our ups and downs. So obviously we're so grateful to you guys, but this was kind of like our way of giving back to you guys during a time where I feel like some people don't always feel their best, or you feel like that pressure. You know, you're out there, you're in your swimsuit, you're at the barbecue, you're at the beach, whatever you're doing. And like, maybe you feel self-conscious. Maybe you've, been seeing a lot of like shred for summer, whatever. Like, we are bringing you that confidence that you need. We are bringing you that self-esteem that you so deserve, that like we know is in you, because we know you guys, we know our citizens, and you guys keep it so fucking real. You guys keep it we just know how incredible and gorgeous and beautiful you guys are. And so that's what this whole series is about. It's about bringing it out of you, babe. We're bringing it out of you.
We're bringing it out of you because we know that she lives deep inside all of you. And we are actually starting this off with such a huge, incredible honor of a guest, Jamie Kern Lima. You guys know her. She is an American entrepreneur, investor, and a media personality. And she co-founded a little brand that I know all of you ladies might know called It Cosmetics.
Ever heard of them?
Ever heard of It Cosmetics? I'm pretty much my entire face right now is It Cosmetics. Ugh. And she ended up selling that to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion in 2016. But that's not where it ended for Miss Lima. She became the first female chief executive officer at a L'Oreal brand, and she is included on the Forbes list of America's richest self-made women. She also has a new book out called Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough. And she just debuted a podcast called The Jamie Kern Lima Show. And her very first guest was none other than Miss Oprah Winfrey.
Ever heard of
guys, her? Just a gal, you know.
Anyone ever heard of Oprah? Anyone here?
Hey. And it is actually a two-part interview, and it is so beautiful, so incredible. There are tears shed. It is, I think you will enjoy it so much because you get to see these two women like you've never seen them before. You kind of feel like you get this inside look of their hearts and what they bring,
and
to
a real
the table.
Friendship too. They're friends in real life. Like, I think it's also just such a stripped down conversation between two women, and they are such like magnificent juggernauts in their respective worlds. But to see just two women come together and talk the way that their conversation, it's like, it's just crazy. It's just, it feels like you're just sitting there with like your sisters chatting,
Yeah.
And Oprah is my sister at the end of the day. And she will be replacing you. She will be replacing you.
Listen, you heard it here first. That's fine with me. That's fine with me.
Hunter's like, just take me to Monaco when we sell it to Spotify for
literally
$80 million.
And I'm going to call it here first, and I'm going to tell Jamie, but she will be up there with Oprah as far as like one of the most revered women of our generation, because I think the way that she speaks from her heart, the way that she's really bears her soul. If you guys haven't checked out her new book, I actually literally have it right here. It is called Worthy. Michaela finished it this weekend on Audible, but you can pick it up also. And it is just one of those books that you really can't put down.
No, I'm gonna make sure I let her know that I was flying through it. Like, was, I'm a reader, you guys, and I was just like, I
And I'm
can't.
not a reader, and I read it.
You read it, you're not a reader, I'm a reader, and I found the thing is like, you just there's so many pearls of wisdom. So you guys, you have got to go pick up her book. Y'all know that we're not like sitting here recommending books every day. We are only going to recommend books to you guys that we think are going to like seriously massively impact. Your time is so precious, okay? And like,
Yeah.
we know that if we're going to suggest something, it better be damn worth it, okay? So I need you guys to go out, get her book. If you're more of an audio listener, definitely she reads it. And I really like the way that she read her book. I don't think all authors should read their audiobook, but
I want her to read all my
I want
audiobooks.
her to read all of my like I want her to tell me bedtime stories. That's like
Same.
how good. Like it was almost relaxing. Like I was almost falling asleep in
I know
like
her voice is so, like,
her voice
beautiful,
is
just
just so
oh, I know.
sweet. Like she just sounds like a little angel, just like giving you like the most, inspiring words ever. And I was just like, oh, this is so relaxing. It's like that
I know.
sister vibe,
I
you
love
know?
it. I love it. Well, guys, we are going to bring Miss Jamie Kern Lima in. We cannot wait. Jamie and I, we actually met recently at the Oprah special, which was around the shame and weight of round weight, which was such a powerful conversation. And that special replays in my head almost daily because I really got so many nuggets of wisdom in that special. The
Mhm.
amount of powerful women in that room was
Mm.
just it was electric, and you really stood
Mm.
out to me. I love how you really took the reins and also had the entire room kind of do um a little bit of a workshop, which we will get into. But I really love how open you have been about your journey with self-love. And Michaela and I have
Mm.
both read Worthy.
Mhm.
We have listened now to your podcast, and we've actually
Yes.
talked about it at the beginning of this episode with Oprah. And you speak so freely about times that you have dealt with self-doubt and what that has done for you and what you've missed out on.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned during the Oprah special that there was a time when you had asked an investor to invest in it cosmetics, and he had said something to you. I'm going to let you tell that story because I think that that was so powerful, and so many of our listeners would really like to hear that from someone who is so successful. Because I think a lot of times always think, oh, you know what, people in success, they got there and it's fine, they didn't have to go through
Mhm.
anything. And I think it was really poignant and powerful.
Mm, yeah, and I think too, it's like so often we feel alone in our own self-doubt or our own feeling like we're not worthy. Or I used to tell myself like, "Oh, great things happen to people like them, but
Mm.
but I'm not qualified or I don't have what it takes or
Right.
any of those things." And it's funny too because a lot of people might see the outcome of it cosmetics and you know what I mean and when you read the
Yes.
press headlines it's always like Denny's waitress builds billion-dollar company. And it's like,
Yes.
Right.
that's true. But a lot of
Yes.
times people think like, oh, did she just get lucky or was it easy? And I have to tell you, like in my journey of having this kind of idea, and for anyone listening to us right now who has this kind of gut feeling or an idea, maybe they're supposed to like launch a business or write a book or put their, art or their talents or their gifts out there in the world, you get this kind of whisper that maybe you should go for it. And I have to tell you, I trusted that whisper that I was working as a television news anchor and I have really, really bad rosacea. And I started getting this gut feeling like maybe I should, I couldn't find anything that worked for me at the time. And I thought, well, maybe if I could figure out, how to launch a product and maybe if I could kind of shift how, at the time, how models were being used in the beauty industry. Because the first big aha, and then I'm going to talk about so many of the no's, including the most painful no from that potential investor. And this is really not about my story; it's for anyone listening who's faced rejection or who deals with self-doubt and maybe has been tempted to let somebody else's doubt about them somehow turn into doubt about themselves or doubt about their own idea or doubt about their dream. Because I have learned firsthand over and over and over, no one else's doubt about you is any
Right.
or their no or their rejection or their any of it is
Yeah.
any indication of the potential of your success, or the
Yep.
potential that your business is going to make it, or the potential that your personal brand is going to
Mhm.
grow into
Yes.
being on the cover
Yes.
of Sports Illustrated swimsuit,
That's
or
right.
like it is no
Yes.
indication. And when I launched a cosmetics, I took a chance on it because I have bright red bumpy rosacea on my face, and I couldn't figure out why everything I was trying wasn't working as far as makeup goes. And I had this kind of big aha moment where I realized, like, oh my gosh, like my whole life I've loved beauty commercials and I've loved beauty ads in the magazines, and I always aspired to look that way. But growing up, like deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I can somehow figure out, pour every penny of my savings into this business, which was not a lot, figure out, how to work with the best chemists and who are they, and figure out how to create a product that works for me. But the bigger why for why I did it was like, what if, and this was not really being done at the time. I was like, what if I could put, models to show the product that are, every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge. And what if I show my bright red rosacea and like prove the product works? And, my deep down why was like, what if I could do something to help like shift the definition of beauty for every little girl who's about to see these ads and start doubting herself, every
Right.
grown woman who still does. And it's why so many people too who saw your cover of Sports Illustrated felt seen and
Yeah.
cried, and we just like lived the victory with you, like for every
Yeah.
person, right? And so I had that big why. And here's what I didn't know. I did not know that from the moment I launched the company in my living room, it would be hundreds, and because see, everyone sees the outcome now, right? Which is I
Yeah.
sold it
Yeah.
for $1.2 billion cash, became
Yep.
the first woman to hold a CEO title of a brand in L'Oreal's 108-year history at the time. And that all
Yes.
sounds great, but it almost didn't happen. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is the number of times, Michaela and Hunter, the number of times where like someone, like it was no after no after no.
Yeah.
And it is so hard to go, gosh, is my gut wrong?
Yes.
Why? For me, I pray, I get still. And like, I just felt like God was saying to me, you're supposed to keep going. But I was like,
Yes.
okay, but then why is everyone saying no? And from the moment that we launched the cosmetics in the living room, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's from the brands, like from the stores that I love, like the stores I would save my Denny's tip money and like buy a lipstick in. Or I go,
Yes.
I go to the
Right.
department store and I'd be like, I like the latest MAC eyeshadow shade. Like I would get
Yes.
so excited. And every one of those stores said no, and you're not the right fit. And they would always say, because I was using images of real people and showing my own rosacea and to show how the product works. And they'd always say these lines. They'd always say these words. They would say, women will only buy products from images of unattainable aspiration, which
Yeah.
means
Mm.
you can't even ever look
You
like
can't
that because
attain
it's
it.
not
Yeah.
Yeah.
real. And
Right.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh. And I'd be like, okay, I get that's how it's always been done. But
Yeah.
what if women are sick and tired of buying products from people who don't look like them? Anyways,
Yeah.
it was hundreds and hundreds of no's. And this went on for years. And Hunter, your question about the potential investor, this is just a story that became one of the greatest lessons in my entire life. And maybe someone listening needs this in their life or needs to hear these words today. But we were desperate at the time. Like we were down to no money left. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive as a business. And a potential investor had gotten a hold of our product. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my saving grace. And it's this huge, really well-known private equity firm who's known for kind of taking like small unknown brands and turning them into big products we all shop for at department stores and big box retailers and
Right.
drugstores.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, then A, we're not going to go bankrupt, and B, like what if I can I can leverage like their power to get us into all these stores that keep saying no. So I was so
Right.
excited. I literally thought it was going to be our saving grace. And the head guy loved our product, and then the whole team got behind it. We started doing meeting after meeting after meeting. We got to the diligence phase, which meant we had to hire lawyers, which we could barely afford because we thought the deal was going to happen and they were going to come on as investors. And we got to the final meeting. my husband and I flew up for this meeting. I remember we could barely afford the plane ticket, and we had to
Wow.
present our whole product pipeline for the future. And at the very end of the meeting, and by the way, I had been hearing no now for 3 years from Sephora and Ulta and all the department stores and everyone,
Yeah.
right? And the very end of the meeting, he says to me, and he's like 3 feet from me, and his whole team is behind him, and his team is amazing, and he was so great, and he's literally 3 feet from me, and my husband's on the other side of me, and he says to me, "Congratulations! You should be so proud. This is a really, really great product, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in it cosmetics." And I said, "Okay, can you tell me why?" Because feedback is usually a gift,
Yeah.
and I had heard so many no's, and I said, "Can you tell me why?" And he's 3 feet from me, and he got really quiet, and I was like, and I remember like feeling my heartbeat in my ears, and
Yes.
he goes, "Do you want me to be really honest with you?" And I said, "Yes, please." And he just paused for the longest time, and he said, "I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight." And I remember the moment he said
Unreal.
those words. What's
Mm.
wild is I never got angry at all, but instantly it was like this lifetime of self doubt and body doubt, like flooded my body all at
Yeah.
once. So it
Yes.
felt like I was like staring my own fear straight in
Right.
the
Yep.
eye. But
Yes.
how this became one of my greatest life lessons, and this is for anybody who needs these words today, when he said those like painful things, "I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight." I will never forget this moment. Like deep down inside in my gut, like I felt it so strongly. I can almost feel it right now, like it was yesterday. But when he said
Yeah.
those words, I got this feeling so strong, this knowing in my gut that said, "He's wrong." Like he's
Mhm.
Yes.
wrong, right? Like
Mhm.
I felt it. Now,
Yeah.
I
You
didn't know how
knew.
I was going to prove
That was
it
God
because,
in your ear. That was
Yeah.
God
yeah,
in your ear.
well, what's
Yeah.
wild? Like I went in my car and I cried, all the
Yeah.
things.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
did not hear from him again for 6 more years, which I can share the moment I did, which is wild.
Yeah.
But in that 6 year journey, there was moments where like those words came back to me. I'd replay them in my mind, and I would imagine myself like turning down the volume on those words and remembering that gut feeling, that knowing that said he's wrong. And I would like turn the volume up on that. And
Mm.
and what I know when I look back at this moment is what happened, because that feeling that was so strong that said he's wrong, what I believe, exactly what you said, Hunter. I believe in that moment, like this dude gave me a no, but
Mm.
God gave me a knowing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
And
Oh,
that.
God, I have
right.
chills. Yes.
And for
Yes.
every one of us, whether you have faith or you believe in the universe has your back, whatever, I believe this is universal. I think that
Yep.
your intuition, your knowing is more powerful than anyone
Yes.
else's advice. And every one of us gets no's every day. Sometimes it's the
Yep.
friend that doesn't include us in the thing. Sometimes, I mean, there's so many ways we get no's. And
Yeah.
I have learned that when you get still and you, whether it's, just tuning into your intuition, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, when you ask yourself,
Yeah.
and you feel that knowing, I believe your knowing is always more powerful than any one of the no's. And I think that in so often in our relationships, in the career we're in our life. And by the way, we hear no's all the time. And for most of us, we tell ourselves the most powerful, horrible, hurtful no's, more
Yes.
worse than what this investor
Yeah.
So
said.
true. So
Yep.
Right?
true.
We tell ourselves those
Yes.
no's, but those
Yes.
no's are in our head where self-doubt lives. Our
Yes.
knowing is in our soul where the
Mm.
truth lives. And
Yep.
I think that the better we get, every one of us, at tuning into that knowing over any of the no's,
Yeah.
Yes.
that can be the single biggest thing that changes our entire life, our
Yep.
Yep.
friendships, the success of our business, like
Mhm.
our ability to live in alignment with our assignment on this earth.
I love
So,
Yes.
that. I love
yeah, for
that. Well,
me, yeah, yeah.
in
It's the
your
perfect mirror.
book,
Yeah.
one of the things you said in your book that really hit me so hard is you said my creator hid my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny. When I
Mm.
tell you, Jamie, I had full body chills. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I finished your book this weekend and it was crazy because, like, I'm a big reader, but I was just like, I was diving into it. My husband would talk to me and I'd be like, no, 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 no. Like, this is incredible what I'm reading right now. I
You
was like,
hang
I feel
on
like
to
I'm in
every
school.
word.
Yeah, every
It's
word.
Mm.
It was so inspiring. And like, Hunter and I were talking about how we're in this space. So we hear a lot of like very inspiring, and we're around very inspiring women. So it's, it was so nice to have this like fresh injection of
Mm.
inspiration, if that makes sense. But I literally had my notebook out. Like, I was taking
yeah,
notes like I was in school. I was like, school's in
yeah,
session.
yeah.
And when
Mm.
I read that, it just like hit me because I think I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I have heard no's.
Mm-hmm.
And you do kind of eventually you start being like, man, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Like, if God wanted this to happen, he would make it happen. But it is so true that
Mm.
the creator will hide your value because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I was like, I'm getting that tattooed. Like, where
Yeah,
can I put
Mm.
that on my body to see every day?
it's funny, Jamie, how you mentioned, you got to know from this investor and
Mm,
you had that feeling. I had a very similar experience a week before I got the cover of Sports Illustrated. And Michaela and I were talking, and I had just been feeling like, is this it? Like, listen, we're in a very weird time right now in the world where we've almost reverted back to quote unquote thin is in, right?
mm,
Mm.
I'm a plus size woman. I'm a plus size model. I that's my whole platform is loving yourself of every size. And my size in the last year has been pushed out after really climbing up and really fiercely trying to get in there in the same way that you had with It Cosmetics. And a week before I had gotten the cover, I had this conversation on this podcast and said, maybe that's it for me. Like, maybe that's
Mm.
it. Maybe we are done with that. And maybe it was a trend. Maybe it was a phase, which what a sad thing, right?
yeah.
But no, I prayed. I was so steadfast on prayer. And I knew in my gut also of it's not over. This is
Mm,
actually get ready. This is the beginning.
Mm.
This is your
Mm.
season of your break, right? Your time to be. And like you said, Jamie, sit in that silence. And a week later, it was like everything really unfolded for me. And, you know, you mentioned this quite often in your book. And it's just so powerful. And you even mentioned it in your episode with Oprah. Um, there's these moments in your life that become such aha moments when you look back now. And I'm sure you look back now at this investor and go, got it. If it would have gone through, none of this would have happened. It wasn't
mm,
in your divine plan.
Mm. Yeah, I have full body chills also hearing about what you were saying the week before and
Yeah,
how
it
you
was
prayed and you felt like, oh, like get ready, right? I
yeah.
want to call something you set out because this is so, so powerful. Yeah, in the Jamie Kern Lima show, which I just launched, and I'm so excited.
Yay!
My first episode, Oprah and I sat down for a 3-hour interview. She'd never done that in her career. So we broke it into
Amazing.
2 parts.
And by
But what
now,
you
the second episode, you guys will be out. By the time this airs, go and listen to the
Hmm.
second part of her Oprah interview.
Yes.
Well, she says something that is so aligned with what you just said, and I want to call it out. It is so powerful because you did exactly what she says is one of the biggest reasons for her defying the odds in her life. For her, she says that when she prays and gets still, she listens to the call. Like, what is the calling God has for her? She listens to, and this is, again, I'll say this because I know so many listeners, for both of our shows are all different faiths, no faith.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yep.
is so welcome and belongs. And I think this is a universal lesson, no matter what anyone believes. But, for some people, they'll meditate or whatever it might be to the universe. But Oprah says when she prays, she will ask God for the calling. and
Mm.
then she will be obedient to the answer she hears. So she
Mm.
talks about listening for the call and then living
Yep.
the answer.
Yep.
And I love that because you're on your show a week before thinking, is everything over? Is this a trend? You pray, you feel like, oh, get
Yeah.
ready. And
Right.
you like hear that call, and then
Yeah.
and then you are obedient to the answer. And you know, for a lot of us, it doesn't happen 1 week later. That's pretty remarkable. For a lot of us,
Yes.
Yes.
it's like a few years later. But exactly what you just said. Oh my gosh. And Michaela, too, I want to talk about what you had said as well, because I just feel in my spirit right now that somebody listening needs these words, the words that we get,
Yes.
Mm.
we need to all figure out how to tattoo those words,
Yes.
because it is so true. Like for the person listening right now who had somebody pull the rug out from under them, or not, maybe they're applying for this job over and over, and like the person's not seeing their value and they got
Yeah.
rejected from it, or they're dating someone who just crushed their heart and they've been
Yes.
living in the past for so long, or they've not been letting new people love them because
Yes.
of
Mm.
how old people hurt them,
Yes. Another
or
great
Yes.
line from
like,
your book. Yes.
oh my gosh,
Yes.
like just like all the ways that we think. Because here's why I wrote the book Worthy. Because for my entire life, I thought what I needed more was more self-confidence, which I do. I will need that forever. I will be building self-confidence forever. But that is fragile, and it's based so much on, our skills and abilities, and if we're winning or losing, and all
Yep.
the things like like but self-worth is different, and
Right.
you cannot out succeed your self-worth. Like your
Yep.
self-worth is your ceiling, and your self-worth is your deep innate belief that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. And
Yeah.
most of my life I just thought, why do I still feel like I'm not enough? And I kept achieving and achieving and achieving, and it never felt like it was enough, and I
Yeah.
always felt like something was missing. I now know it's why we all know someone who, like, we think like, she's amazing, why is she dating someone who is like horrible to her? It's
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
you can have all the confidence in the world and have
Yes.
your, love your body and love your, achieve it. But if underneath it all, you as a being don't believe, that you're enough, like whatever thing you accomplish, whether it's getting famous or getting the New York Times bestseller list or hitting a certain job title or a follower count,
Right.
you still take you with you. It's
Yep.
why
Yeah.
we see, Olympic athletes destroy their life, or someone land on the moon or become an A-list celebrity, and everyone's like, why do they just destroy their life? It's
Yeah.
because those things cannot give you self-worth.
Yeah.
And the thing I think that's so important, that I just want to link it to, and part of why I wrote Worthy, is because in the journey of getting all these rejections and failures can shake our self-confidence. But if we let them take root to the point where we start to think we're a reject or we're a failure, like that's when it hits our identity level, and when it can
Yeah.
chip away at our self-worth. And there's
Yes.
a chapter 2 in the book Worthy is called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And
Yes.
why it's so important is because, like, and this is my hope and prayer for everyone listening, is like, when you learn to assign a new meaning to rejection and failure and you believe it, it helps
Yes.
you become fearless and keep going for things and not think like, oh, I'm a reject, I'm a failure. And
Right.
right now, because I look at the data, right now, so many people listening to us have a past rejection or failure that they're not even aware of has taken root. And,
Mm.
it could be like, again, the job that didn't see their value, the person that crushed their heart, the friend that betrayed them, the words someone said to them and they let stick. And
Yes.
so in order for me to launch It Cosmetics and endure hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejections and still keep going, or deal with that guy, the investor that said no one will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, one of the tools, is assigning a meaning to that rejection. Because the
Mm.
old me instantly would hear a rejection and think, yep, there's proof I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
for
Right.
everyone listening to us right now, if you imagine yourself getting rejected or failing at something, the first thought you think to yourself, without thinking about it, that first thought you think, that's actually your current definition of rejection. And for
Right.
most of
Right.
us, right, it's so painful. Like for me, it was like, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. For most of us, it's so painful that we won't go for things like, because as human beings we're wired to avoid pain at all costs.
Right.
And so in Worthy in chapter 2, I go through this, like, how do you reveal your current definition and how do you redefine it to something you truly believe, so that every time it happens to you, like, you'll be tempted to go, oh, I'm not enough, I'm a loser, I'm unqualified, I should have never even tried, like the things
Yep.
people say, oh my gosh. But when you catch yourself and you redefine it with, like, oh, no, rejection's God's protection. There is
Yep.
something so much better coming for me. Or
Yes.
the one Michaela shared, because this is important, because you can and I go through how to do this in chapter 2, but when you revisit past rejections and failures,
Yes.
you can realize, like, oh gosh, the meaning I'm giving to them is causing me to stay stuck in my life.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you can redefine them. And one of my favorite all-time ways to do this, I do probably every day in my life, even right now, by the way, with like current things happening,
Yeah.
Right.
is exactly what Michaela said. I will go through a painful rejection, or we all have these things happen. I'll have a friend not invite me to the thing, or whatever it is. I will literally imagine God saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected.
Yeah.
I hid your value from them
Mm.
because they're not assigned to your destiny.
Right.
And I will
Love
believe
that.
it, and it prevents me. And I've had to do this in my life. Like, I dated someone I was so in love with. He was an alcoholic, he was a pro
Mm.
athlete, the whole thing. I would have, like, I won't even get into that. We've all dated people where now we're like, thank God it
Thank
did not
God.
work
Oh,
Yeah.
out,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
But at
Plenty.
at the time, we're like, oh, I'll do anything. And
Yes.
there's so many past things in my life, from adoption to all kinds of stuff, where I've had to go back and look at how things transpired and reassign a new meaning. And I probably every day use that definition for stuff. Like, something
Mm.
hurtful will happen.
Yeah.
I'll be tempted for it to hurt my feelings, or tempted to go back to, like, oh, yep, I'm not enough. I'm not cool enough, funny enough, smart, whatever it is. I will intercept it and be like, you know what? What I know for sure in every ounce of my being is my creator will block my value from people who are
Yep.
not assigned to my destiny. And I
Yes,
will just, like,
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
that faith, and it helps me not let rejections take root. It helped me keep going and going and going during, like, hundreds of rejections. And so for the
Right.
person who's, like, writing the book, or they're putting their heart and soul out on social media, and they're like, why do I not have even one like? And
Mm.
Right.
like none of that. Like, I will tell myself that almost every day,
Yes.
and it's always true. And by the way, that investor who said those things, I didn't hear from him for 6 years. And the day that L'Oreal bought It Cosmetics, because they're a public company, I didn't know this was going to happen until the night before. They had to disclose the purchase price. And I
Mm.
was freaking out because, first of all, most of my family thought, oh, I think she can maybe pay the bills now. I think the
Right.
company is doing, but like, no one knew anything about,
Of
Right.
you know what
course.
I
Yeah.
mean? And I was
Yes.
still working 100-hour weeks. Like, I
Right.
was like, I wasn't doing anything fancy. Like, so I was just like, for just about 10 years, worked that many hours, and no one really knew anything. The day the deal was announced, it was everywhere, like the
Yeah.
homepage of the Wall Street Journal. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
L'Oreal pays $1.2 billion cash for the,
Right.
and it was
Yeah.
just like,
I
but
remember seeing
anyhow,
it. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
wasn't that wild? And the
Yeah, I
number
was
of
in business
calls.
school. I was in
Oh,
college
you
for
were?
business. 2016, right? I think it
Yeah,
was. Yeah,
yeah,
and that was
yeah,
like a discussion amongst people, believe it or not. Like, it was just such this huge news story. And
yeah.
but yeah, continue, because I this is my
Oh, well,
favorite
it was
part
the,
of the story.
is it? Well, it was the first time I heard from that investor in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Mm,
Ooh, it gives me chills every
And
time you say that.
well, here's what's wild, you guys. So first of all, you remember, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Pretty Woman,
Of
of
course. Yes.
course.
where, like, she goes in the store and they won't help her, and then she
Yes.
goes back a couple of days later. So what I wanted to say to him was, big
Big
mistake.
Yeah.
mistake.
Huge,
Huge. Yes.
huge. I can give
Yes.
you 1.2 billion reasons why it was a huge mistake. I did not tell him that. I kept it really, really classy.
Hmm. Of
But
course.
I would not have wanted to be him. Number one,
No,
we
he
probably
knew
would have
what he
been.
had done.
Oh,
Hmm.
well,
You didn't
but
have to
here,
say anything.
Yeah.
Here's what's beautiful about this, and this is what's wild, is I believe people are inherently good. I
Yes.
believe that he was making a business decision based on the lies he was believing that,
Yes.
you need to look a certain way to make me money. And I
Yeah.
think
Yes.
it was like not personal. I think it was just
Yeah.
his own beliefs he was raised believing, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the beliefs that all of us, especially the two of you,
All of
me,
us.
Oprah, are working so hard to change, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
cost him a whole lot of money, those beliefs. um
Sure did.
but
Right.
but here's the other part of this for anyone who's like gotten a rejection recently or a painful heartbreak or whatever. You guys, when I say like rejection is God's protection, some people say rejection's divine protection or the universe's protection. Okay, had he believed in me, first of all, I was so desperate at the time when I was just like hoping, praying that he would invest, thinking he was like my saving grace. I was so desperate. We were so close to bankruptcy. I probably would have given him the majority of the company for like nothing,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
that's what I was
right,
wondering. Yeah,
yeah,
like,
but
do you
because
feel like
he,
it would have gone such a totally different route?
oh,
Because at that point, when you're so desperate, you're like, "I'll take anything, like, I'll give you half my
yeah,
company, whatever it takes. I just need we just need to
yes.
float, you know?
Yeah.
Survive."
Exactly, and who
Mhm.
knows what he would have, like, you know, eh, probably pressured me to change who I am. Who knows what
Yeah.
diet I'd be on? I mean, who knows if we would have shifted our positioning because I wouldn't have had a say because I wouldn't have owned the majority. But
Yeah.
because he didn't believe in me, the day of the L'Oreal deal, I was still the largest shareholder in the whole company. So it's like,
Wow.
thank God. Like
Wow. Thank
Yes.
rejection's
God.
God's protection. We just don't see
Yes.
it at the
Yes.
time, and it just
Mm.
Yep.
sucks at the time, and it feels devastating at the time, and it often doesn't make sense at the time. But
Yeah.
Right.
always, one of the things Oprah talks about in the episode of the Jamie Kern Lima show. Oh my gosh, to even
Woo!
say that, you
Which
guys, to
is,
even say the Jamie
It's
Kern
so
Lima show.
exciting. I
well,
know, it's so
Jamie, I
exciting.
was telling Michaela before this, I truly believe you will go down in history, much like an Oprah, as a woman who will be in our history books as someone who is revered.
Mhm.
I think that you have that power, you have that heart, you have that. I think that is your calling. I
Yeah.
can see that in you. The moment I even saw you, you had talked about, when you like going back to when you were on, it was QVC, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was the
Mhm.
first time I saw you. And I was that girl that saw you and was like, "Oh my god, I've never seen myself represented in this space. Like,
Mhm.
she's the
Mhm.
creator, she's the creator. Like, what?" That was
Yes.
huge. And to see what you have taken that and you've never wavered on who you are as a person. You've
Mhm.
never had that, "Oh, I have to change." You could have also very much so said to this guy, this investor, and said, "You know what? Give me a few months. I'll lose weight.
Mhm.
I'll change myself. I'll, whatever." When you're desperate, sometimes you just think, "Oh, that's the only way." But you've never done that. And I truly believe that you will go down much like an Oprah. I think you were just interviewing someone that is your mirror. She's
Yeah.
your mirror. Will be in
Mhm.
history as one of those women that changed the world and
Mhm.
the way that we think about ourselves. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for it because I have two young kids and one of them is a daughter. And it's people like you who make that difference and
Yeah.
make that change and aren't afraid to do it when a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I appreciate that so much.
Well, the first thing I want to say is thank you. And the two of you are saying that and seeing that in me because that is in you. That is how you can see it
Thank you.
because you know
Thank you.
that
Thank
that
you.
is you too. And what I'm so inspired by listening to you share that is every person listening to us can also
Yeah.
impact and serve and change and and elevate the
Yes.
world conversations and like what you just said, so many people don't. And I
Mhm.
think it's because at any given moment we're all so close to doubting ourselves
Yeah.
Yeah.
out of our own destiny. Like
Yeah.
self-doubt kills more dreams than almost anything else. And the two of you know this story, but maybe a lot of listeners don't, is that like a lot of people see me with Oprah, right? On the first episode of my podcast. And like it almost didn't happen, right? Because my
Right.
whole life I dreamed of meeting her. I actually met her for my 40th birthday and ended up having lunch with her shortly after. We had a 3-hour lunch at her house, just me and her, that I tried so hard to believe I was worthy of in the moment. It was
Yeah.
the best day ever. And at the end of it, she gave me her cell phone number. And I just want to call this out for anyone who is listening to us right now who thinks like, oh, things like that happen to other people, but I'm not enough or whatever. I remember having lunch with Oprah that day, and she gave me her cell phone number at the end and said, call me anytime. You can call me anytime. And I did not call her for 4 years. Now, in my life at the time, my company had exploded. I was donating, tens of millions of dollars to product and money to causes I'm so passionate about. I have a team of over 1,000 employees. The Forbes list happened. All these things on the outside were great. And for 4 years, I told myself stories like, oh, I'm just not calling her because I've got to think of the perfect thing to say.
Yeah.
But what I realized 4 years later was I had gotten to a point where I felt worthy of running an amazing company. I felt worthy of putting myself out there and trying to change the beauty industry. But
Yes.
I did not call Oprah for 4 years because deep down inside, I actually didn't think I was worthy of being her friend. And when we don't think we're worthy of something, when we let self-doubt take over, like we'll sabotage it, our
Yep.
self-worth will become our ceiling. We cannot out succeed our self-worth.
Yeah.
And that day I realized like, oh, first of all, I am a kick-ass friend. Like I know
Yeah.
how great of a friend I am. And
Yes.
I just had to intentionally like turn down the volume on my doubting mind and turn up the volume on my knowing soul. And
Yeah.
that's what gave me the courage to just pick up the phone and call her. And so now for her to be the first guest on the Jamie Kern Lima Show podcast, now for you and I, Hunter, to do that event with Oprah together
Yeah.
in person, like here's what I know in my life, it almost didn't happen. Like I almost doubted myself out of my
Yeah.
own destiny. And when I think about every person listening to the three of us right now, it's like, what are you almost about to doubt yourself out of? That is a lie because you're telling yourself you're somehow
Yes.
not enough for it. Or
Yeah.
somehow you want to stay stuck because you're fearing the rejection or the embarrassment or trying and having everyone see you start small or any of the
Yeah.
other crap that just keeps us stuck. And my hope and prayer is like the things that we're sharing together today help someone realize like, oh, I thought I was alone in getting rejected a whole bunch of times, but that is no indication of how
Right.
successful my idea is gonna be, right?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
Yep.
or anything else. Like that
Right.
person's doubt about me is no indication of my worth or anything else.
Right.
And so my hope and prayer is that you guys hear from somebody from this show that says, I almost doubted myself out of the
Yeah.
thing, but no more. I'm
Yep.
all in. I'm
No.
going full speed ahead.
I
Yes.
love
And I
it.
love that you're saying that because I think as humans, we are so predisposed to go away from pain and towards
Yes.
pleasure. And
Yes.
change happens in the uncomfortable, right?
Mm,
So we're not gonna, for instance, I just recently had to put my dog down and I was like
mm,
dragging it because I'm like, oh, I know I'm gonna feel the grief. I know I'm gonna feel the grief. I have to do it though, right? It's
For
like you get
her.
uncomfortable, you do it, you're fine, you go through it.
Yeah.
And I think that that is so powerful. And I want to ask you, you have done all of this work. Is there days still where you hear that self doubt come in? And if there is, what are some steps that you take that help you with that?
Mm.
mm. Every single day. I feel like
Mm.
building self worth and overcoming self doubt is like a lifelong journey
Yeah.
every single
Yeah.
day. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if you
I
guys
always say
have had
Rome
this.
wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah.
The
Yes.
Sistine
Well, and
Chapel wasn't painted in
Mm-hmm.
a day.
in a day, I think it's lifelong. And,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like, now, much like you guys, I've had the blessing too of meeting for me some of my greatest mentors or people that I could have, never once imagined meeting. And what I've learned
Yeah.
is like everybody sort of has the same thing. We all
Yeah.
still deal
Mm-hmm.
with self doubt. We deal with those you know, the lies we've in the past for a lot of us believe for so long. Am I enough? Do I have what it takes? Um,
Yeah.
do I need to please more people so I feel more love?
Right.
If I'm me, the real me, will people really love me?
Right.
And how I deal with it is very first of all, when I have those thoughts, which is every day, I remind
Mhm.
myself, like, oh yeah, I am not alone. This is
Yep.
everybody, even the people I, have Googled and read their story and like at one point couldn't even imagine have doing the things that they've done and changed humanity like they have. They have all gone through countless failures and setbacks
Yes.
Yeah.
and self-doubt. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going.
Mhm.
And so I tell myself right away, like, okay, it's not personal to me. It just means I'm one of the brave ones, like
Yep.
putting
Yep.
myself out there, asking the person if they want to be friends as an adult, like all the things that we do,
Right.
right? Where we like
Yes.
risk our like and so the first thing is I remind myself, oh, okay, this is not personal to me.
Right.
And then depending on the thought or the situation, I'll probably redefine it, attach like a meaning to it that I know is true in my soul. Like, and I also go back to the data. And what I mean by that, and I'll just use one example. So many of us show up as our representative. We are so trained to show up as our representative, as the
Yeah.
person we think we need to be for someone else to love us or to
Mhm.
get their
Yeah.
stamp of approval or
Yep.
to belong in the boardroom or belong on the stage or you know all of it, right?
Right.
Belong in the relationship, like
Right. Yep.
belong in the
Yeah.
friend group, like
Yes.
there's so but when you look at the data, like it's impossible to have a true authentic connection with another human being unless you are who you truly are, unless you are fully yourself.
Mm.
And when we show up as our
Yeah.
representative, we think we're going to get more love that way,
Right.
but we actually just put up a barrier of disconnection between ourself and that other person that prevents true connection. So we're as humans, especially in the US, we are lonelier than ever. We are
Right.
Yeah.
lonelier than ever.
Yeah.
And I remind myself, like, okay, I don't want to have a bunch of fake relationships with people that don't actually know me, because every time we show up as someone we're not, we're actually chipping away at our self-worth. We're telling
Yeah.
ourselves we are unworthy of being who
Right.
we truly are.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know that, okay, short term, I might please or make someone else happy, but it's coming at the expense of number one, my self worth, and number two, an authentic connection with them. And
Right.
so
Yes.
it helps give me the courage to just do things anyway, even if I'm tempted to doubt myself. Like Oprah, for example, she every my family. So growing up, I have a bunch of families. I'm adopted. It's a whole long story,
Mhm.
whole nother podcast with a bottle of wine. But anyways,
Yes.
I my step family, who one of them is just they sing "Happy Birthday" to you full blast when it's your birthday, like no one's on key, but
Yeah.
Yes.
everyone fully commits,
That's my
and it's like
family. Yeah.
this
We
tradition,
do the
right? Do
same
you?
thing. It's
Oh,
it's so mortifying for everyone
But
and
the
we love it.
best.
It's the
it's the
best.
best, right?
It's the
It's
best.
So
the
Yes.
best.
I so I started doing it for, some of my close friends as I grew up, and like I'd leave them an audio text or I'd call them or like lucky them, right? And so I was like, okay, as Oprah and I started becoming friends, I'm like, listen, if she is going to know the real me, she is getting a happy birthday song.
Yes.
And I'll
That's how you
never
know.
forget. That's
Yeah.
how you know. And I'm just like, listen, and I have to do this every day. That's like an example with Oprah, but I do this in every area of life every day. I have to remind myself, if I don't fully show up as who I am, there will never be a real friendship. If I don't
Yeah.
fully show up as who I am, there'll never be a real connection online between people who are giving me their precious time to see content
Yeah.
I'm putting out. Like if
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't show up as the real, you know what I mean? And so, and yeah, not everyone's going to get it, not everyone's going to like it, but at least I'll have true connection, and at
Yeah,
Yeah.
least I won't be
exactly.
chipping away at my self-worth like
Yeah.
one moment at a time. So I
Yeah.
think for everyone to know that, it just helps give you the courage, like, yeah, if they fully show up as me, flaws and all, quirks and all, sense of
Yeah.
humor
Yeah.
and all, off key voice and all, like
Yes.
it's the only way. It's the only
Yeah.
Yeah.
way to
It's
have
almost
to
like putting up
step
a
in your
window.
power.
It's like putting up
Mm.
a window between you and the person. Like you can see them and they're there and you're like your hands are this, but you're not
Mm,
actually touching the person, because
yeah.
you have that barrier up,
And
which
it's
is
Yeah.
like
like,
blocking your energy exchange.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
real. It's like they're having a relationship with your wax figure from Madame
yeah,
Tussauds, It's like they're
yeah,
not getting to know the real you, and like you said, it's like it reflects on you in a way where you're like, "Oh man, they love me, but they don't love me." And I think that that is something that everyone has felt with like a partner or a friend if you're not vulnerable with them. I felt that for
Yeah.
sure. I used to have such a hard time being vulnerable with people. I was very protective of my heart and my, all of that. And then once I started really just bearing myself, I was like, oh, I believe it when you say you love me because you love
Yeah.
even these
mm,
You've
cracked parts
seen
of
me.
me. You love even these dark sides, these things I've been through, like we've experienced grief a lot in the last few years. And people who stuck around during that time, I'm like, oh, like you see me, you see my heart,
Yeah.
you see the good and the bad of me. And those connections, like those are people that I would put my life on the line for now
Yeah.
because the
mm,
connection is so strong and so powerful. And it just speaks to you, like just being who you are. And when you
Yeah.
called Oprah, you're like, this is just who I am. Like, I'm going to call you and leave you a happy birthday message because that's Jamie. And this is how Jamie rolls,
Well, and I think that to really quickly piggyback on that, um, I think that also people will realize they realize it when they listen to our podcast. They will realize it when they listen to the Jamie Kern Lima show podcast that we are all people who desire to be heard and to
Mhm.
be
mm,
seen and to feel seen. Even Oprah
Yeah.
wants a happy birthday message,
Mm.
and even Jane Doe down the street wants a happy birthday message. At the end of the day, I believe we're all God's children, right? And we are no better, no worse. Like we are all the same and we that's what we want. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to feel valued.
Yeah.
And we can only do that when we open our hearts up and we say,
mm,
well, this is me at my core.
Yeah.
And I want you to feel comfortable with you at your core. And I want to see it and I accept it. And I know that that's what just listening to the first part of your conversation with Oprah, I felt that. And we had talked about this at the top of the show before you came on. I saw a side of you and Oprah that I have not seen before. I got to see Oprah in a way that I haven't seen her before.
Yeah.
And it was really it almost was like humanizing. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sitting with my girlfriends. I'm sitting with my sisters here, right?
Mhm.
Like we all feel the same things."
Yeah.
And I think that that's really spectacular. Um, and you do that so brilliantly, Jamie. You let
mm,
people be, and because you be, right?
Mm.
You are you, and so people feel comfortable to be them, and
Yeah.
that's what's so
mm,
special. I mean, even you had gifted me, and I think it was like 12 of your books. And I was like, told Michaela, I'm like, I want to do a giveaway with our followers for this because I thought that was such a brilliant thing to gift
mm,
me something so that I can gift your knowledge and
Yeah.
your words to other people. And what I love is that you walk the walk. 100% of your proceeds of the book are being donated to Feeding America and programs that are dedicated to building self-worth with women. 100%, you guys, of the
Mhm.
proceeds. That just goes to show you're the real deal. You're the
Yeah.
mm,
real deal. It's
Mhm.
not about making money. It's not about saying things to be a facade. It's about sharing your heart truthfully. And it's really incredible to see. And we are just so honored and so grateful that you came on our podcast and shared your heart here and gave us your valuable time and to just kick off this series of really talking with women on what self-love looks like,
Mm.
because it's different for all of us, and for all of us it's all valuable.
Yeah. I wanna know, what did Oprah say? Did she respond? Was she like, "Thank you so much.
To
This is
happy
the
birthday.
best message." Yes. What was her
So,
response?
no, usually, so we'll talk, but usually there's no response to sometimes the audio message where I sing. And then it's so funny. I was in her dining room this not too long ago, and we had just done the episode of the show and of the podcast, and I was kind of making a joke that she's getting that message every year. She's getting me call her every year with this song, and
Yeah.
she's so freaking funny, you guys. Like she's so quick, and she's like, "Yep." And every year the voice doesn't get any better.
I love it.
Like,
I love
well,
it.
You're like, you know
and
what?
yeah,
Yeah,
I have
I
learned
love
from
it.
her. Oh my gosh. Like sometimes I just sit there and I'm like, because she says she didn't learn to say no even till she was such a people pleaser most of her life. And she didn't even
Yeah.
learn to say no till she was 40. And
Mhm.
I've met a lot of women who still haven't. And for me, it's still a struggle every day. And like, I don't know.
Same.
I love, yeah, the things that the two of you share, that she shares, hopefully that
Yeah.
I share. I feel like, I feel like we're all in this together. You know what I mean? And in
Yeah.
different ways, we can sort of like be inspired by, every person on this journey of learning to love themselves, learning to
Yes.
believe in their worth. And so, yeah, so she's, um, just, oh my gosh, I feel there were moments because we did a 3 hour interview, right? And she'd said she'd never done that in her career, a 3 hour interview. And there were moments in it. That's why I had to break it up into parts. But there were moments in it where I was just like, I had to get back in the moment because I was like, I felt like there were things she was sharing that transcended the fact that we were sitting on a podcast and that were
Yeah.
like just spoke to my soul. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like these are things I wrote down that I'm going to remind myself of every day. And I
That
think
was like
that's
me
what's
reading
so,
your book. That was like
Yeah.
me reading your book this weekend. I was like, wait,
oh,
this is like
Yeah.
really like hitting me so hard,
Yeah.
Like it was just I had the same experience, honestly, where I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like, is she speaking to me? Is this book
yeah.
to me?
It is. It's a book
You know?
to all of us on this
Yeah.
journey together, and we're constantly learning. And Jamie, we have taken so much of your time, but before you go, I want to ask you one more question. What would you tell? Because I always believe that we have the little girl inside of us. And I think that oftentimes one thing for me, I have shifted my thinking to, okay, what would little Hunter think of what I'm doing right now? Would she be proud of me? And I think of that because I hope my daughter thinks of that, right?
Mm.
Like I'm like she's perfect in my eyes, and anything that would she would ever feel, sorry, getting emotional.
Mm.
Anytime she would ever feel self-doubt or anything less than perfect breaks my heart. And I
Yeah.
always think of how my mom must feel or the people around me must feel when I don't look at myself that way. So what would you tell the little Jamie Kern Lima? Well, I guess Jamie, not quite Lima. Yeah, you probably weren't married yet, but what would you say to her now?
uh, I would just say, like, you are enough and fully worthy exactly as you are, and that
Yeah.
God can dream a bigger dream for you than you can for your life. And to
Mm.
just trust in that, to know that your steps are ordered, to know
Yes.
that
Yeah.
your steps are ordered. And I think that the little girl that was me, just honestly, you guys, I lost decades of my life doubting
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
enough. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
decades of my life doubting I was enough. And that's why I wrote Worthy, because it was like the day when I realized I wasn't calling Oprah after 4 years because I didn't think I was worthy of being her friend. Like I was like, holy crap, that was when I became obsessed with studying self-worth. That was when I was
Yeah.
like, because it's like I think building self-worth is not about all these things you've got to learn. It's actually like about unlearning
So
all
Yeah.
the lies,
true.
right?
Because
That lead
all
to
day
self-doubt.
long,
Yeah.
all day
Yeah.
long, we're it doesn't matter where we are, it's getting thrown at us what we should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because it's the biggest money making move, right? The more we don't like ourselves, the more we don't believe in ourselves,
Yeah.
the more everybody else makes money. And I
Mm.
get that and I understand that. But it's like, yeah, it's
Well, that's why this
unlearning.
show is so important as well, because a lot of us, if we are blessed enough to have loving family or well-intended family, we have generations before us that, believe in their heart they're doing the right thing, by saying things to us like, well, shouldn't you do this? And shouldn't you do that? What about that? How's that going? What about this? And like, it's so ingrained that for a lot of
Yeah.
people, they're only, and energy is contagious
Yes.
and
Yes.
all of it. And so for a lot of people, that's like why, the two of you, your show, hopefully my show, I feel like for a lot of people, this is the part of their inner circle
Yes.
Yes.
because a lot of us have family and even friends that just aren't and maybe aren't even interested in like
Yeah.
Yeah.
unlearning all the lies. Maybe they're just so
Yes.
ingrained and they just live that, but they're lovely and you still want to love them. But you also need people around you
Yeah.
that remind you of who you are and that you're fully worthy and enough exactly as you are and make you feel like you can come as you are and
Yes.
just like that you belong there. And so I think yeah, I just want to honor you guys for doing this show and also just like for the goodness and the force for good that you put out in the world and even
Mhm.
sharing too, Hunter, how you parent. It's like most of us weren't parented that way, even though
Yeah.
even if we're blessed to have amazing parents. But it's like hallelujah that we're having conversations like this because
Yep.
Yes.
times are changing. Times are changing. So
Yes,
Yes, they
absolutely. It's
are.
so true. And Jamie, if you don't think you're getting a happy birthday voice message from
You
Hunter and
haven't.
I for your birthday in a couple weeks, right? It's in like
yeah,
2-ish weeks, right?
yes,
We're gonna be
Jamie,
yes.
we're gonna be
you have
sending you a
another thing coming. It's going to be a
horrible
duet
off
because
key.
Michaela's going to be with
Yeah.
me. We're going to record it when she's out here. So it's going to be pitchy and
It's
it's
gonna be
going to
bad.
be gorgeous
Hmm.
and
I'll play
it's going to be bad,
ukulele
but
while we do
listen,
it.
we
Yeah, it'll
welcome it.
be yeah.
We welcome it.
That will be the best gift. Thank you. I'm excited. I cannot
Uh,
wait.
Jamie, thank you so much for coming on. And you girls out there, we have a very, very big female listenership. That's why I say girls, but anybody who's out there, don't forget to check out Jamie's show, the Jamie Kern Lima show. Is it drops every Tuesday?
Every
Hmm.
Tuesday,
Which
yeah,
is
everywhere you get your
awesome.
podcasts and also on YouTube. So, yeah, I'm so excited.
Yes, it's
Yes, and check out her
fabulous.
book, Worthy. And we are also going to be doing a giveaway for some of you lovely listeners. But thank you so much, Jamie. We so appreciate it. And we hope to see you in real life soon.
Yes,
Yes, thank you so
absolutely.
much.